Cherish woke to birds chirping and a shaft of sunlight coming through the bedroom window. She sat up and stretched, looking for her husband of 2 days. After finding no trace of Malachi, she threw on her prayer cup and left the room. When she got to the porch, she sat down and pushed her feet into her shoes. Then she stood up and headed off to find him. After walking around for a while, she spotted him pushing a wheelbarrow filled with horse feed in the field. She was about to join him, but some scratching noises from the barn distracted her. She pulled the door open slightly, just enough to look inside. A small woman with graying hair was bent over a table, focusing on the papers in front of her. Cherish could tell right away it was Aunt Dagmar. Cherish took a few steps forward, feeling anxious and out of sorts. How long had it been since she'd seen Aunt Dagmar? Cherish couldn't remember. Dagmar looked up at the sound of Cherish's footsteps and seemed startled at first. When she saw it was Cherish, she smiled, pulled her into a tight embrace, and hugged her. Cherish wrapped her arms around her aunt, who smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. Cherish was safe in the warm embrace of family. "Everyone thought you were dead. I've missed you so much. I've come to tell you something." Cherish stepped back to look at her aunt, but then a shaft of light coming in through the high barn window stung her eyes, causing Cherish to cover her face and close her eyes. When she opened her eyes, she was back in bed. A beam of sunlight shone on her face. She sat bolt upright, and both hands went to her chest. It had all been a dream. Aunt Dagmar wasn't there. It had seemed so real, but it hadn't been. She closed her eyes tightly and could still feel her beloved aunt close by. Cherish was sure she could detect Dagmar's familiar scent, vanilla and cinnamon. Could she sense her because she was now living on the farm that Aunt Dagmar had willed to her? Dagmar would have been so happy for her to be married to Malachi. How she wished Aunt Dagmar had met him. Still, Cherish was sure they would have gotten along. Cherish and Malachi had arrived at the farm the night after the wedding, having come from the orchard. Their whirlwind wedding had been beautiful. Mom and Ada had seen to that. After she got out of bed and put on her slippers, she walked to the window and looked out. In the distance, she saw Malachi. She was glad he hadn't woken her. It was so cold this morning. There were icicles on the window pane. Malachi strode over to the horses with their buckets of feed. Wally, his pet goose, followed, flapping his wings all the way. When Malachi noticed her at the window, he put his hand high in the air and waved. She smiled and waved back. Cherish's dog got off his bed and walked over to her, his tail wagging furiously. "Good morning, Caramel." Cherish leaned down and patted him. Then she quickly brushed her hair and changed into her day clothes. Lastly, after putting on her coat, she went outside. Malachi had just finished milking the cow as she approached. With his messy hair and rolled-up sleeves, he looked like the Malachi she had fallen in love with. Looking at his bare arms, she wondered why he didn't feel the cold as much as she did. Malachi was picking up the bucket of milk to take to the barn when Cherish asked him how long he'd been up. He jumped and nearly dropped the buckets at the sound of her voice. "Cherish, you scared me." Cherish covered her mouth and laughed along with him. "I'm sorry about that." "You could have slept longer. I've got this under control." He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his chest, breathing in his musky maleness. She could feel his heart beating against her cheek. "I'm so glad you're here with me," he muttered softly. "I'm glad I'm here with you, too." He did not say anything else, simply held her in his arms, like he was afraid that she might disappear if he let go of her. When they parted, Cherish said, "You should have woken me. We said we'd do everything together."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.